Lego Ninjago, Masters of Spinjitzu. Sane, Ninja of Ice. 2 stories in 1. Published by Scholastic. Please do not distribute this copy without any permission. Sane, Ninja of Ice by Greg Parsley. Contents. From the Journal of Sensei Wu, page 1. Getting the Joke, page 9. The Choice, page 23. Chapter 1, page 25. Chapter 2, page 29. Chapter 3, page 33. Chapter 4, page 37. Chapter 5, page 43. Chapter 6, page 50. Chapter 7, page 54. Chapter 8, page 60. Chapter 9, page 67. Chapter 10, page 74. From the Journal of Sensei Wu. Sane. Will I ever solve that mystery that surrounds him? More important, will he ever learn the answer to all his questions? Sometimes I fear not. I had first heard rumors some time ago about a youth in a northern province capable of withstanding extreme cold. At the time, my other duties kept me from seeking him out. When my brother, Garmadon, threatened to steal the 4 weapons of Spinjitzu, I was forced to seek out potential ninja. This caused my path to finally cross that of Sane. I found him in the most unusual place. He was sitting at the bottom of an icy lake, meditating. On the shore, a crowd of villagers had gathered, all of them marveling at how long Sane had managed to stay underwater. Anyone else would have surely surfaced after a few minutes due to the lack of air or the freezing cold. But Sane seemed to be hardly bothered by any condition. He was, however, quite shocked to open his eyes and see me seated down there with him. Sane was an orphan, or rather, he thought he might be, but he was not so sure. As it turned out, he was a young man without a past. He said he awakened one day near the village with no memory of how he had gotten there or where he had been before. All he knew was his name. He made his way into the village and learned a living doing jobs for various people. The fact that Sane was able to do work outdoors in the brutally cold conditions made him much valued, especially by those who preferred to stay indoors by the fire during snowstorms. When I asked him about training to be a ninja, he was slow to say yes at first. As we talked, he realized that there were many secrets he could uncover through this training. That was how I discovered that Sane loves to learn. And I'm always trying to find out new things. Sane is in fact possibly the smartest of my 4 ninja. That is, if you measure how smart someone is by only looking at what they've learned. Sane can tell you why the grass is green, how a flower grows, what makes a babbling brook sound the way it does. But I have never I have never known him to lie in the grass and look at the clouds, smell a flower, or relax by a brook. I have seen him study the structure of a snowflake, but I wonder if he sees the beauty in the fact that no two are alike. My other ninja, Jay, Cole, and Kai, have certainly noticed that Zane is a bit different from them. They talk about how he has no sense of humor, he rarely smiles, and never laughs, and doesn't seem to even get the joke the other young men tell. Although they like him and respect him, it is sometimes hard for them to feel close to Zane. There is something about him that just feels unique, and no one can identify what it is. Despite his dedication to his training and the mission, I know Zane is troubled by the questions about his past. He wants to know the answers, but perhaps he fears them as well. What if his parents are still alive, searching for him? Or what if they're bandits and would want him to use his skills for crime? What if the story of his early years holds the key to everything about him that seems so strange to the others? Still, has shown me again and again and again that he has the right choice to be my ninja of ice. When he faces an enemy, he seeks out points of weaknesses and targets them. When he strikes, it is not out of anger or fear. Even when faced with a mighty ice dragon, Zane does not panic. I have seen Kai let his love for his sister blind him to the danger, and Jay's humor desert him in a moment of crisis. But Zane is ice. What does the future hold for this most mysterious of ninja? I do not know. I believe he hopes his adventures with Kai and the others will somehow lead him to the answers about his past. I truly believed he would go to the ends of the world to find out who he really is. And I and my ninja will stand beside him as he searches for clues to this greatest of mysteries. Getting the joke. Zane picked his way carefully down the rocky hillside. His eyes had already adjusted to the darkness, but it would still have been easy to trip and fall. If he were to tumble and cry out, he might be warning samurai skeleton warriors that the ninja were nearby. Worse, if he was badly injured, Sensei Wu and Zane's three friends would have to leave him behind. The mission they were on was too dangerous and too important to risk its success. The mission Zane was undertaking at the moment seemed far less important. Sensei Wu had sent him off to gather sticks so a fire could be built. Although it was a cold evening in the mountains, Zane didn't see the sense of making a campfire. They were very close to the Caves of Despair, the place Sensei was sure would be teeming with skeleton warriors. Why build a fire and potentially give off their position? Not for the first time, Zane wondered if the sensei truly knew what he was doing. The hillside suddenly grew much steeper, Zane found himself running faster than he wanted toward the bottom, and only reaching out for the nearby tree slowed him. He glanced up and noted that there were a number of branches that would make good firewood. As silently as possible, he began to climb the tree. There could, of course, have been another good reason why the sensei sent him off on this task. He had been traveling with the other ninja, Ko, Jay, and Kai, for days now, but he did not really fit in with them. Despite the danger they were always facing, the three youths were always laughing and joking. Zane never joined in. In fact, he couldn't remember ever really doing that. He had always been a serious person, devoted to meditation, and hadn't had time for humor and games. The others didn't know what was about him. All they saw was someone who didn't get the joke. Maybe they were beginning to wonder if Zane was afraid of the challenges ahead of them. That was why he was so grim. If they had doubts about him, it might cause problems in battle. Maybe the sensei wanted time alone with the three to discuss this, so he sent Zane off on a pointless job. Zane didn't think he was afraid. He certainly respected the power of Garmadon and Samukai. Only a fool would not. But the feelings that came with fear, cold, sweat, trembling, heart pounding, were absent from him. Much of what the ninja would face was still unknown, and Zane saw no point in fearing the unknown. It was a waste of energy. He was about to break off a small branch when he heard a twigsman snap down below, flattening himself against the tree trunk. He waited and watched. In a few moments, he saw the moonlight gleaming off the polished bones of a skeleton warrior. The skeleton was alone and muttering to himself as he walked. "Go get the wood, Knuckle," grumbled the skeleton. "Pick up those rocks, Knuckle. Stop eating all the donuts, Knuckle. Orders, orders, orders. That's all I ever hear." Zane knew what he had to do. This Knuckle might stumble upon the camp and see Sensei Wu and the others. He would then rush back to report to Samukai if the skeletons found out about the ninja now. It would be a disaster. The success of the mission depended on surprise. He waited until Knuckle was right under the tree. Then Zane let go of the trunk and jumped down on top of the skeleton. Knuckle let out an oof as Zane landed on him, and the two rolled around the ground until they smacked into a big rock. Zane was stunned for an instant, allowing the skeleton to get to his bony feet. "Ha!" said Knuckle. "You're my prisoner." Zane rolled aside and sprang into a crouch, a shuriken in his hand. "No, you are my prisoner." "I said it first," insisted Knuckle. "I hardly think that matters, really." Zane answered, "I have a shuriken. You dropped your sword 15.2 feet up the hill. How can I be your prisoner if you have no weapon?" Knuckles smiled and tapped his head with a long finger bone. "I have my brain." "Well, actually, I don't really, but I bet I'm still smarter than you." "Why would you think that?" asked Zane. "For one thing, when I climb trees, I don't fall out of them," Knuckles said, with pride in his voice. "And I don't run around the dark by myself in the middle of midnight, where I might run into trouble. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's what you were doing when you met me, Zane replied. Shows what you know, snapped Knuckle. When you work for Samukai, you're never alone. Someone is always watching you to make sure you don't eat all the donuts. Zane frowned. How can you eat donuts when you have no stomach? Knuckles started to answer, then paused, looking confused. A moment later, he opened his mouth again to speak, and stopped again. He seemed even more puzzled than before. He looked down at the ground and scratched his skull. Finally, he glared at Zane and said, "That's none of your business." "Turn around," said Zane. "I'm taking you back to my friends." Knuckles shook their heads. "You turn around. Samukai will want to talk to you." Zane threw his shuriken. It glanced off Knuckles' skull into the woods. The skeleton staggered for a second, but his bone was like armor, so he wasn't harmed. The two began to fight furiously. The first one was winning, then the other, but they were too evenly matched for either to win. They were rolling around on the grass when Knuckle hit his head on a rock and stopped fighting, dazed. Zane got to his feet. "If I knew Spinjitzu, I could win, but I don't yet. We could fight all night, and if I lost, it would put the others in danger. Still, he's not too bright, so maybe." "You can't capture me," Zane said suddenly. "I'm not really here." "Huh?" said Knuckle. "But you fell out of a tree and you're standing right there." "A tree?" Zane said in disbelief. "Did you ever hear a ninja falling out of a tree before?" "Well, no," Knuckle admitted. "Then it doesn't make sense that one did tonight," said Zane. "Want to know what really happened?" Knuckle nodded. Zane couldn't tell if the skeleton was genuinely staring to disbelieve his own eyes, or just waiting to see how far the ninja would push this. But he pressed on anyway. "You are in your camp," said Zane. "Someone told you to go out and look for firewood." "Sure, Cruncha did," said Knuckle. "Just before you left, Cruncha told you a joke," Zane said. How did the ninja get up in the tree?" Knuckle brightened. "I don't know. How?" He hid inside an acorn and let the squirrel carry him up," said Zane, doing his best to sound the way Jay did when he told a joke. Knuckle laughed. "Ha! An acorn. Some big ninja hiding inside a little acorn. That's a good one." Zane took a step backward. "Right. In fact, you were thinking about that joke the whole time you were walking here." "I was?" Zane took another step back. "Sure, think about it. A little squirrel carrying up a ninja up a tree. That's funny." The ninja wasn't really sure if it was funny or not, but he had heard Cole tell the joke once, and the others had laughed. Knuckles certainly seemed to like it, as he started laughing even harder this time. "So there you are, minding your own business, thinking about the joke when you tripped and hit your skull on a rock," Zane continued. "Naturally, you got all confused. When you got up, you thought you were really seeing a ninja who had been up in a tree. But of course, you weren't." "Right," said Knuckle. "Of course, that would be ridiculous. A ninja up a tree." You would have to be really stupid to believe that. Took another step back. He was now almost completely hidden by darkness now. One more thing. I wouldn't tell anyone back at your camp what you thought you saw. They wouldn't understand. Yeah, they wouldn't, Knuckle began. But the ninja he had been talking to, well, the one he imagined he had been talking to was gone. Shrugging, the skeleton turned around and started picking up sticks to bring back to camp. It had certainly been a strange night, but he had been glad but he was glad that the imaginary ninja had been nice enough to admit he wasn't real. It would have been embarrassing to tell Cruncher he had seen someone who clearly wasn't there. Or was he? Zane had gathered an armful of wood, and was on his way back to camp. No doubt the others would be waiting for him. He looked forward to telling them about this adventure, and that maybe he finally got the joke. The choice. Chapter 1. Zane sat at the bottom of the half-frozen pond, eyes closed, meditating. The water was so bitterly cold that the average person would have been shocked into unconsciousness by exposure to it. But Zane was not bothered at all. He had taught himself to put the sensation of cold out of his mind, just as he mastered how to slow his breathing. This allowed him to stay underwater for an extraordinary length of time. The last chance he'd had to meditate this had been in his village. He had been at the bottom of an icy lake then. When he opened his eyes to see the amazing sight of Sensei Wu, teacup in hand, down there with him. That was when the sensei recruited him to join his ninja team. Their mission was to stop the evil Lord Garmadon from getting his hands on the fourth weapons of Spinjitzu. So far, they had retrieved 2 of the 4 artifacts. Now, as he pondered in the frigid water, Zane wondered if he had made the right choice in joining Wu's team. True, what they were doing was vitally important to the safety of the world of Ninjago. But Zane had joined for the other reasons besides fighting for justice. He had hoped that the chance to travel the world would lead him to the answers about his past. Thus far, that fort had produced no results, and that the fact gnawed at him. The frustration he felt at the thought of his failure actually broke his concentration. Suddenly, his lungs were burning. He had to rush to the surface and get a breath of air. Clawing his way back onto shore, he inhaled deeply. Zane looked around. He was alone. But that was not usual. In a sense, he was alone wherever he went, for without memories. What does a man have? Zane had awakened one day on the road outside the small village, with no idea how he had gotten there or where he was. He knew his name, a little else. The people of the village had taken him in, and there he'd stayed until Wu's arrival. Since then, he had been haunted with questions. Who was he? Where did he come from? The answers remained elusive. Not long ago, he and his friend Kai traveled back to that village in search of clues to Saint's past. Instead of finding any answers, they found themselves in the middle of a plot by Samukai, ruler of the underworld, and his skeleton warriors. The two ninja had smashed the plan, but found nothing to fill in the gaps in Saint's memories. Saint stood up. There was no point in regrets. He decided a commitment had been made to Sensei Wu, and he had to live up to it. Perhaps when Ninjago was safe from Garmadon, there would be time to resume his search for his past. Saint was about to leave the pond and head back to camp when he heard a noise nearby. It sounded like a low moan, as if someone were in pain. Saint stopped and listened intently. Yes, it was coming from a cave nearby. The ninja sprinted off into the direction of the sound. Chapter 2. The cave mouth was small and narrow. Saint noted that if the cave itself was the same size, there would be a little room to maneuver in a fight. In a split second, he ran down a list of what might be causing the noise. Someone might have been hurt by an animal inside the cave. Someone might have been exploring the cave and been injured. The noise might be coming from a wounded animal of some sort. The sound might even be caused by the wind blowing through a gap in the rocks somewhere. Naturally, there was one other possibility. It was a trap. Samukai had already tried tricking Sane and Kai to get what he thought was a treasure. He might try it again. Sane stood at the edge of the cave entrance and called out, "Is someone in there? Are you hurt?" Silence was the only answer. A voice came from the darkness of the cave. "Help me." It was a man's voice. Faint, as if the person it belonged to was very weak or badly injured. Sane didn't hesitate. There was no time to go for help. If someone was injured, he had to aid them, even if it meant risking an ambush. Now, with the power of SPINJITZU at his command, he'd figured out the odds were on his side, even if it was a trap. He took a few cautious steps inside, allowing his eyes to adjust to the darkness. The sounds had stopped. Sane peered into the cave, hoping to spot whoever had been calling for help. He saw no one. "You won't find me here," the voice said, stronger. "But I do require your help." Sane looked around, his hands already curling into fists. "Where are you? Show yourself." "The answer to the first is the reason I could not do the second," the voice replied. I cannot come to you, Sane. You must come to me." "Thanks," said Sane, turning around. "I'll pass, somehow. I have the feeling the cost of helping you might be a little too tight." The ninja intended to head for the exit, but there was nothing there but darkness. Now he couldn't see a way out. Still, he did not panic. That wasn't Sane's way. If this was an elaborate trap, maybe even his last battle, he would still face it calmly. As Sensei Wu always said, an angry fighter has already lost the war. I'm afraid I cannot let you leave until you have heard me, the boy said gently. All I ask is for you to listen. No harm will be done to you, Sane. If I wanted you dead, well, you would be begging for death by now. Sane turned back toward the direction from which the voice was coming. Since I don't seem to be going anywhere, say what you have to say. Start with who you are. A soft chuckle filled the cave. Don't you know? Then the laughter was drowned out by the sound of rocks scraping against rock. A crack of light appeared on the cavern floor in front of Sane, growing wider and wider as he watched. When the noise finally stopped, a portion of the stone floor had slid away to reveal a winding staircase. I'm the stuff of all your nightmares, the voice said. I am the boogeyman in all of Sensei Wu's bedtime stories. I'm the exile, the outcast, the villain every tale must have. I am Garmadon. Chapter 3. As Sane climbed down the stairs, he did his best to convince himself it was a wise thing to do. If he could confront Garmadon, he reasoned, perhaps he could learn something of the evil one's plans. Then all he would have to do is escape and inform Sensei Wu of what he had learned. Of course, the little voice in his head said, people escape from the underworld every day. Piece of cake. There was a sudden hiss of air to his left. Instinctively, Sane ducked. A half dozen stone daggers flew by overhead, smashing the opposite wall. The ninja had barely time to recover. When the stairs beneath him flattened into a slide, he tumbled end over end for about 100 yards before landing hard on a smooth platform of rock. Sane struggled to his feet. There was darkness all around him. He peered over the edges of the platform, but saw nothing. Had he skidded a little more upon landing, he would have gone over the edge and fallen to his death. What happened to no harm will be done to you? Sane snapped. That looks like a lot of potential harm to me. I had to be sure you are a truly sane ninja of ice, Garmadon answered. After all, someone might have created a fake. For what purpose? Who knows, said Garmadon. Why do people hide golden weapons that might otherwise benefit humanity? I long ago gave up trying to determine the motivation of others. The platform began to descend. Sane noticed the temperature falling. Not nearly enough to be uncomfortable yet, but it was definitely getting colder. How far down am I going? He asked. If it's up to me, answered Garmadon, all the way. The platform finally came to a stop after what felt like a very long time. The temperature was easily below zero here, and Sane doubted this was the lowest level of the underworld. So I still have something to look forward to. So, he thought. It was dark. Darker than any place Sane had been. I have something to look forward to, he thought. It was dark. Darker than any place Sane had been. Shadows skittered along the walls, moving like rodents, but much too large to be any rat Zane had ever seen. Other than his own breathing, there was no sound. That was perhaps the biggest surprise Zane had expected, to hear the sound of marching skeleton warriors. I give them the day off, Garmadon answered, as if he had read the ninja's mind. I wanted us to have time to talk. About what? About you. Thanks, said Zane curtly. But I am shy. I prefer not to talk about myself. Then I will carry the conversation, said Garmadon. We can talk about your skill as a ninja, your mission, your new friends, or perhaps, would you rather talk about your parents? My parents? What trick are you trying to pull? No trick, Garmadon replied. Come here now. Zane, I have been trapped down here for a long time. Is it not, as you can see, a place bursting as the scenes with entertainment opportunities? What else is there to observe the surface world? I have followed the course of many lives up there over the centuries, yours included. Zane was intrigued. He hated feeling that way. He knew this had to be some ploy of Garmadon's, but he couldn't help wanting to know about. He wouldn't help wanting to hear more. So you're saying, he began, that I know all about your past, Garmadon said. Who you are, where you came from, why you left. I have all the answers why. They are yours for the asking. I see, said Zane. You're being very generous. Garmadon laughed. It was a foul sound. I don't believe I know that word. Of course, I don't want something. Oh, of course. I want something in return. I'm going to escape this place, Zane. No matter how my hated brother may try to prevent it. When I do, I will need warriors by my side. Competent warriors. Not samurai's bumblers. I want you, Zane, to lead my ninja. Your ninja? Asked Zane. What ninja? The terrible answer came in an instant. Shadows detached from the walls, shadows in shape of ninja warriors. As they advanced on Zane, he could see that each carried a sword of pure darkness. Soon he was surrounded by at least a dozen spectral fighters. Zane braced himself for a fight, at the same time reaching down to himself to find a center of inner calm. There was no room for fear in the upcoming struggle. He had to analyze his opponents rationally and find their weakness. The first few shadow ninja moved in. Zane immediately saw that their fighting styles were clumsy, imitations of Kai and Jay. Their blows had power behind them, but no artistry. Zane parried them easily. More joined the fight this time. Intimidating moves of Cole, the ninja team leader. Again, Zane easily fended them off. For the sheer number of opponents was beginning to tax him. The last group was charged now. There were shadowy versions of Sensei Wu himself, and they were far better fighters. For the first time, Sane had to put real effort into protecting himself, which left him wide open to blows from other shadows. Too much more of this, and he would go down in defeat. The time had come. Drawing on all his willpower, Sane began to spin in place. Soon, he was a whirlwind, unleashing the power of Spinjitzu against his foes. The shadows did not fall before his attack. Rather, Sane's cyclone shattered them into fragments of darkness that flew around the chamber. When the last of the enemies had vanished, Sane slowed down and came to halt. He had won, but the battle was over. Or would Garmadon now unleash more ninja on him? There were plenty of shadows here to draw them from. Sane had a realistic sense of his own abilities. He knew he could not survive too many more fighters like that. As you can see, said Garmadon, my ninjas need a little work. It seems they'll do for now, said Sane, trying to catch his breath. But it's lucky for you, Kai isn't here. So you can see why I need a youth of your skills to train to train and lead my warriors, said Garmadon. And in exchange, you get the answers to every question that has plagued you. More than fair trade. In my opinion. Speaking of opinions, Sane laughed, yours must not be very high of me. If you think I would ever accept such an offer, I know all about you, Garmadon. Your ambition, your hunger for power, your plans to dominate Ninjago. I would never help you. Never! Garmadon's voice grew very low, its tone betraying the anger he felt at Sane's words. You know only what my brother wishes you to know. As someone or other once said, my enemy has written all the books. Meaning there are two sides to every story, Garmadon replied. Do you have the courage to hear mine? Sane didn't know what to say. He didn't trust Garmadon at all. Sensei Wu had told him and the others more than once what a liar his brother could be. Yet part of the quest for justice was learning all the facts about a situation, rather than allowing your prejudices to determine your actions. Could he truly be sure there was no more to the story of Wu and more to Garmadon's story? Go ahead, Sane said finally. Tell your tale. Chapter 5. The air in front of Sane began to whirl. Colors bled into one another in a giant kaleidoscope. And then a picture began to form in midair. Sane saw a much younger Sensei Wu, and someone he assumed was Garmadon. There was a tall, shadowy figure standing before the brothers. Sane got an unmistakable sense that this was a man of power. My father, said Garmadon softly. He created this world. Did you know that? I never understood why, with two sons to look after, he chose to take on the responsibility of millions more. I suppose whatever needed he had for respect, worship, wasn't fully satisfied by Wu and me. Now, the figure was lifting a cloth from the table to reveal the 4 weapons of Spinjitzu. The scythe of quakes, the nunchucks of lightning, dragon sword of fire, and shurikens of ice were incredibly powerful artifacts. It was said that their energies would be so great that no one could control all 4 at once. It was to protect these weapons from Garmadon that Sensei Wu had assembled Sane and his fellow ninja. Up to now, they had been in the race against skeleton warriors whom Garmadon allied to retrieve the weapons and keep them safe. My father's gift to the 2 of us, said Garmadon. Amazing workmanship. Wouldn't you agree? He told us that when he died. The responsibility for their safekeeping would be up to us. Nothing like having something to look forward to, Shifted again. Garmadon's father was gone now, but the weapons remained. Sensei Wu and Garmadon were preparing for transport. Sending the weapons off to a place of concealment was actually Wu's idea, said Garmadon. He always did like playing hide and seek. Even as a child, of course, I always won. I found it quite simple, really. You excel at finding things, asked Sane. Oh no, Garmadon laughed. I excel at manipulating my brother, you see. He would hide, I would seek. After a short time, I would grow bored with trying to find him. So I began to sound panicked, as if I were afraid something might happen to him. It was no longer about the game. It was now about Wu's safety. You see, my tender-hearted brother would feel guilt that I was so worried and would reveal himself. And so, I won again. I think he knows you a little better now, said Sane. He certainly thinks he does, Garmadon countered. But millennia trapped in the underworld can change a person. Wu really has no idea what I'm capable of, do you? I'm sure I will find out, Sane replied, if you do not bore me to death first. The colors swirled once more, and now Sane was seeing Garmadon's attempting to steal the golden weapons. Wu suddenly appeared, pointing an accusing finger at his brother. The image froze on that moment. And there we have it, said Garmadon. The turning point. That is the single moment that defines me in my brother's eyes. Anything and everything else we shared in the past was forgotten right then. You were trying to steal the weapons, Sane said, his voice echoing off unseen walls. Of course, Sensei Wu turned on you. What did you think he was going to do? Honestly, Garmadon answered, I thought he was asleep. I thought I would be long gone with the 4 weapons before he ever realized they were missing, and then we would play hide and seek by my rules. But it didn't work out that way, Sane said. As he talked, his eyes darted about, looking for something that might be a control panel for the platform. It was all very interesting hearing about Garmadon's youth. But there was still a little matter of escaping from this place to think about. Unfortunately, he couldn't see anything but shadows and stone. No, I did not. Much of the misfortune of Ninjago, said Garmadon. Think about it, Sane. Those weapons could have been, and still might be, used to vanquish terrible evils that plague your planet. Instead, Wu chose to hide them away. When I wanted to put them to use, I was condemned as evil and banished here. You wanted to use them to conquest and destruction, spat Sane. According to Wu, Garmadon shut back. Just suppose he has a reason to be completely honest with you and your friends. Suppose. For all this startling reputation, my brother is afraid to use those weapons. That is the truth. He is afraid to do what is necessary to protect this world from evil. Sane was not known for his sense of humor, but even he almost laughed at that. Sensei Wu had devoted his entire life to battling the forces of darkness. Now Garmadon, a shadow allied with an army of skeletons, was trying to act as if he were the true crusader for justice. Whose life have the weapons improved? No one's, Garmadon continues. That's what villain have they defeated? What problem have they solved? None. They have been hidden away, gathering dust, of use to no one. Is that why they were created? I say no. Sane had had enough, and who is the judge of how they should be used? You? Samukai, one of the skeleton warriors who attacked my village? This time, the answer did not come from Garmadon. Instead, the scene shifted to show a kindly-looking man with a little boy sitting on his lap. The man was saying, "When you grow up, you will be very wise and strong. I'm sure of it. You must always remember that your wisdom and strength, indeed any power you may someday have, should be used for good. To do any less would be to prove yourself worthy of that power, Sane." Suddenly Sane, the ninja of ice, who could meditate in the freezing lake without discomfort, felt terribly cold. Who is that? I promised you information. Consider this a sign of my good faith. Garmadon answered, "That, Sane, is your father." Chapter 6. Sane stood and stared for a very long time. It had to be true. The boy did look like him, as he could have been aged, as he could see an aged version of his own features on the face of his father. Father. The word sounded strange, even rolling around in his brain. He knew it would sound even stranger if he tried to say it out loud. He reached out to touch the image, but his hand passed right through it as if he were a ghost. Sane couldn't bring himself to say the word. This man, where is he? Who is he? Said Garmadon. As I made him appear, the image abruptly vanished, so I can make him disappear. Consider this a glimpse of the treasure trove of information that awaits you for here. All you have to do is say yes. Sane stared at the wall, at the empty space, where his father's image had been. Yes, to what? To what? Well, I am not asking to stab your friends in the back, Garmadon answered, though that certainly would be amusing. Just slow them down a bit, here and there. You can manage that. And when the time comes, choose the winning side in the fight. You're asking me to be a traitor? That's such an ugly word, said Garmadon. I am asking you to be practical. Is the choice is certain victory plus a head full of knowledge about your past, of sure death in battle with my skeletons? The realistic man would find the decision an easy one. Zane shook his head. He was actually considering Garmadon's offer, and he hated himself for it. Would this be what his father wanted? How could he someday look the man in the face if he had bought the chance to meet him, the lives of his friends? Yet if he said no, then what? He would never find his father or mother or home. He would spend the rest of his life an empty shell without a past. Maybe he could help Garmadon only a little, not enough to cause a problem, and learn at least some of what he needed to know. 3, 2, 1. Garmadon counted down. Time's up. There was a flash of light. Zane blinked to clear his vision. When he could see, he found himself out of the underworld. He was back at the edge of the pond. Had it all been a dream? No, it couldn't have been. He decided. He never had dreams like that. Any doubts were resolved when he saw a shadow shift beneath a tree and heard the voice of Garmadon saying, "If we have a bargain, Zane, you will know what to do, and then when to do it. If you should need more convincing." The waters of the pond stirred, and in their depths, Zane could see his father with an elderly woman. They were sitting in a farmhouse with a picture of Zane on the table. Before them, the woman, his mother, was crying softly. The image was gone as swiftly as it appeared. Chapter 7. Zane made his way back to camp. The first person he encountered was Kai. "Hey, are you alright?" the ninja of fire asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Or two, Zane replied. Softly. "Huh? Never mind. Where's Sensei Wu?" Kai pointed toward the center of the camp. Sensei Wu was sitting by the campfire, staring pensively into the flames. Zane walked over and sat down next to him. At first, the sensei did not seem to even notice this presence. But after a few moments, Wu said, "The birds of worry nest in your hair." "Zane, do you wish to tell me why?" Zane hesitated. Did he really want to say, "Well, I was considering betraying you for my own selfish reasons"? No, it was best not to. "No, Sensei," he answered. Wu nodded. "Do you believe your doubts and fears threaten our mission?" "I don't know," answered Zane. The sensei sipped from a cup of tea that seemed to appear as if by magic in his hand. Zane would have swore it had not been there moments ago. There was once a golden dragonfish. The aged warrior began. It lived among a very great school of its brothers. One day, the fish broke away from the school seeking adventure. It met a shark. The shark invited the little fish to travel with him and feed off the mites that had collected on his scales. Soon, the dragonfish fell into the ways of life of traveling with the shark. Its success was linked to that of the great predator. Months later, the shark spotted a school of fish and went on the hunt. To his dismay, the dragonfish saw that the prey fish the shark was after were his brothers. He had time to warn them, but doing so would mean the end of his pleasant life with the shark. Decisions. Does he know? Wondered Zane. Or only suspect? Well, I must be careful. Well, questions of loyalty are always difficult ones, said the ninja of ice. Is it not always easy to believe which side you to be on, or what you believe in yourself? The sensei said, be true to what you believe, to your ideals, and you will find your choice that has been made for you. Thank you, Sensei, said Zane. I believe I understand. By the way, what happened to the dragonfish? Oh, he fled the shark and warned his brothers. That is commendable, said Zane. His loyalty to his school was more important than his own interest. He must have been proud of himself for making such a choice. Indeed he was, the sensei replied. Right up at the moment, the shark ate him. Zane shuddered. Cole approached, carrying the golden scythe of quakes, one of the 4 weapons of SPINJITZU. Like Zane, Cole was a pretty serious sort. He took being field leader of the ninja very seriously. Are you ready? Zane asked. He asked Zane. Zane, he asked. Ready for what? I have not yet told him, Sensei Wu said. Sensei Wu said to Cole. Turning to Zane, he extended his hand. In his palms were the shurikens of ice. Yet another one of the valuable artifacts. You and Cole have found your golden weapons. The time may come when you are forced to use them. I want to go some distance from camp and train with them. Wait, said Zane, confused. When we found the scythe, didn't you told us we must never use it. Isn't it dangerous to practice fighting with these weapons? Sensei Wu nodded. Times change. The wise man changes with them. We have retrieved 2 of the 4 weapons, and my brother, Garmadon, will be growing desperate. Anything may happen now. Zane barely heard his answer. All he could think was what would happen if he gave Garmadon 2 of the golden weapons. Would that be enough to buy information about his past? It wouldn't be so bad, would it? He asked himself. As long as we get the dragon sword of fire and the nunchucks of lightning, we can stop Garmadon. It would simply be a stalemate. Let's go, said Cole. We don't have much time. No, Zane replied. I guess we don't. Zane took the shurikens. Something felt wrong about all of this. But the image in his mind of his parents drove all other thoughts away. He rose in silence and followed Cole out of the camp. Chapter 8. They stopped walking. When they reached an empty area, it wasn't far from the cave where Zane had found Garmadon. If Zane had believed in fate, he would have surely seen this as a sign. Cole was twirling the scythe, being careful not to strike anything and unleash the weapon's seismic power. Soon he was moving on so fast that the scythe was just a golden blur. Get started, Cole ordered. Try getting the feel of the wave and balance of the shuriken. That will help you master throwing. Zane did as he was told. That feeling that something was wrong kept nagging at him. What was it? Something about the shuriken itself? Perhaps? He held it only briefly when the team had retrieved it from the ice fortress. What could have happened between then and now? And was there more to the sensei's decision to allow training with the golden's weapons than the old man was letting on? Something whistled through the air past Zane's head. An instant later, Cole hit the ground, unconscious. Zane rushed over to him. He had been struck by a thrown rock. There was a big lump on his head, but the ninja team leader was alive. A half-dozen skeleton warriors stepped out of the surrounding woods, followed by another skeleton, this one with 4 arms. The ninja of ice immediately recognized this new arrival, and he knew he was in serious trouble. Samukai, breathed Zane. The empty eye sockets of the ruler of the underworld narrowed. You flesh-covered types all look alike to me, Samukai rasped. But I remember you. You're the one with no past. Well, I have news for you. You have no future either. Zane glanced from Samukai to Cole, then back again. It was time to make his choice. He took a step away from his fallen friend and raised the shuriken as if preparing to throw it. Samukai moved back a little, but none of the other skeletons did. The 4-armed warrior knew the legendary power of the shurikens of ice. Obviously, his soldiers had no clues what they faced. A moment passed. Then two, combat or surrender. Loyalty to his team or betrayal on behalf of a life he could not remember. Which would it be? As he turned the shuriken over to his fingers, he felt that sense of wrongness yet again. But this time, he knew the cause, and he knew what he wanted to do. Zane lowered his arm and extended the shurikens toward Samukai. Here, take them. The scythe, too. Your master knows my price. Samukai didn't move. His expression was wary. He did not become ruler of the massive underworld by rushing into traps. And that was what it felt like. Who do you think you are trying to deceive, child? Said Samukai. Some minor shade on the first visit back to Ninjago? One of my idiotic soldiers? Do you expect me to believe you are going to simply hand over the 2 of the 4 weapons of SPINJITZU without a fight? Believe it or not, answered Zane. You have 30 seconds to accept my offer. After that, you can try to take them, but I do not like your chances. Or you can go back to Garmadon and tell him you had the chance. uh, at half of his desired treasure, and you turned it down. Samukai did some quick mental calculations. Garmadon was not his master, despite what this kneeling human thought. But Sensei Wu's dark brother was a powerful ally, just the same. It was doubtful Garmadon would take kindly to finding out the shurikens and Ice Wife could have been had and were allowed to slip away. Shoving one of his skeleton warriors toward Sane, Samukai said, "Give the weapons to this one. He is too slow to know what to do with them, so there's no risk of betrayal. You say Garmadon would know your price. I would like to know it too. I do not like to purchase items without knowing the terms of sale." The skeleton approached. Sane handed him the shurikens, then bended down to pick up the scythe of quakes. He gave that to the skeleton as well. Be careful with dropping these. Dropping them would be bad. Answer my question, snapped Samukai. That is my price, Sane replied. The answer to all my questions. Samukai took the two golden weapons from his warrior. A smile appeared like a crack in his skull. Do you want us to strike you down now? You know that you can tell Sensei Wu you were attacked, defeated, and the weapons stolen from you? I'm sure we can make your battle damage look most convincing. No thanks, said Sane. Just give me what I ask for. Samukai cocked his head and paused, as if listening to something no one else could hear. Then he said, Garmadon says return to the cave. You'll get what you need there. What about my friend here? Samukai shrugged. If we wanted him dead, we would have thrown a bigger rock. Sane wouldn't argue with that logic. Twisted though it might be, he backed away from the skeletons, keeping an eye on them, until they had all withdrawn into the woods. Cole was already beginning to stare. Sane turned and headed for the cave, hoping he would make it inside before his friend spotted him. He didn't want Cole placed in any more danger because of him. What he had to do now, he had to do alone. Chapter 9. The cavern was still pitch black inside, but now the darkness seemed alive with movement. More of Garmadon's shadow. Ninja, perhaps? Sane stood still, waiting for the platform to descend and take him to the world below. But nothing happened. His host, it seemed, saw no reason to continue the tour of the underworld. An impressive beginning, said Garmadon, his voice slithering out from all corners of the cave. I chose wisely, I see. Not a beginning, Sane corrected. An ending. Give me the information you promised, and our deal is done. Do you think it's that easy? Sane stood his ground and said firmly, I know it is. I have lived with my mysteries for a long time now, and could keep going if it was necessary. You have spent far longer trapped in the underworld and cannot stand it. Seems to me that you need you need more than I need you. Garmadon gave a soft chuckle. Very well, then our bargain is a bargain. Look, Sane. Once again, the portal appeared in midair. This time, Sane saw himself as a small child with his father and mother. Their home was a single shack in what appeared to be a little village. Zane was sitting on the lawn, playing with his stick, while his father chopped wood and his father hung up washing. "Your father is a wood worker," Garmadon said. "He carved wood into axe handles, toys, plates, bowls, utensils, all sorts of boring things like that. Your mother was a seamstress, sewing new clothes and repairing old ones for others. Between the two of them, they made enough money to keep a little food on the table and take care of their young son." The scene shifted. Now, a much older Zane was walking down a road. It must have been just past sunset, for the road was very dark. All at once, a horse-drawn cart came, thundering around the curve, dangerously fast. It struck Zane a glancing blow, and the young man fell unconscious on the road. "You were on your way to purchase some supplies to your from a neighboring town," Garmadon continued. "The driver of the cart never even saw you. The next morning you woke up in the road with no memory of what happened." End of story. "What?" Zane said. "What about my parents? Are they still alive? What village are they from?" "If you want more, you must do more for me," Garmadon replied. Zane shook his head. "No, never. Then I have half of the 4 weapons, and you have half the story. And that is how it is. It costs you the trust of your friends, your honor, and your pride. It cost me, the hour or so I needed to make up that story." At first, Zane felt like crying out in anger. Everything Garmadon had told him about his past, it had all been a lie. His parents, his home, all of it. Nothing than a trick to get him to betray Sensei Wu. Yet instead of raging at Garmadon, Zane actually smiled. This seemed to annoy Garmadon. "What are you smiling about?" he demanded. "Oh, I was just thinking about the bargains," Zane answered. You do get what you pay for. I didn't, don't you? You gave me a phony past, and I give you a phony weapons of Spinjitzu." "What?" roared Garmadon, loud enough to shake the cavern. "I can't take the credit," Zane explained. "Your brother must have sensed what you were up to. He gave Cole and me fake versions of the golden weapons, suspecting they might wind up in your hands. I didn't know at first, but when I got ready to throw the shurikens of ice at Samukai, I realized they were too light. The true gold is very heavy, and this felt more like iron, painted gold." Zane turned and started walking out of the cave. "I'm afraid, Garmadon, you traded a lie for a lie. Our business today has ended." 3 skeletons appeared in the mouth of the cave behind him. Zane could feel the shadows taking form as ninja. He was surrendered. It is end when I say it is ended. Garmadon snarled. "No one makes fool out of me." There was a blur movement at the entrance to the cave. Something smashed into the 3 skeletons, bowling them over. An instant later, Cole stood alone in their place. "No one has to, Garmadon," Cole said. "You do such a good job of it by yourself." The shadow ninja charged. Sane dove toward landing on his hands and lashed back with both feet. His kicks staggered to the ninja before the rest could close in. He rolled into a somersault and sprang his feet next to Cole. "How did you find me?" asked Sane. I saw the rock coming from a mile away," Cole replied. "It grazed me. Well, maybe a little more than that. But I was awake the whole time. I would have shown up sooner, but I wanted to see what you would do." The shadow ninja rushed out the cave this time. Their movements were more fluid, their blows harder, their imitations of the young ninja more accurate. But this time, Satan was not facing them alone. He and Cole worked like a perfect team, ducking and dodging and striking hard. Cole confused the foe by dropping his back and landing and kicking a shadow ninja's midsection, sending him flying through the air. Sane saw a shadowy being coming and leaped high, coming down with a twisted slam that smashed the dark ninja into the ground. After a short but furious battle, the shadow ninja started retreating into the cave. Saint started in after them, but was brought up short by Cole. "No, let them go. We need to go back to the sensei. But come on, it's over for now. There'll be another day, I promise you." Chapter 10. Sensei Wu was waiting for them when they got back to camp. He monetized for Sane, joined him by the fire. "You guessed that the weapons were fake, and so you gave them to the enemy." Sane nodded. "And if you hadn't known they were frauds, would you still have handed them to Samukai? You feel you are not sure of the answer to that question, and it bothers you. Does it not?" Again, Sane nodded, his eyes on the ground. "Fortunately for us both, I do not know the answer," Sensei Wu said, smiling. "I may not know your origins, but I am certain of what is in your heart. Just like the dragonfish, when the time came to make a choice, you would do what is right, even if it cost you your life. That is why I chose you. That is why you said yes." "Thank you, Sensei," Sane said quietly. "But I wonder, will I ever know about my past? Will I ever meet my parents?" "I truly hope so," the sensei replied. "And when you do, tell them the tale of this day. Tell them how they did their memory honor, even when that memory was lost to you." Cole walked up to the fire. "Sensei, you said we need to get moving. I have the others packed up and ready." "Yes, indeed," the sensei said, getting to his feet. "We have a third weapon to find." But it was not a long journey, just to the edge of the world and beyond. There are more mysteries to be explored, my young ninja, and perhaps some answers to be found along the way. And that's all. Thank you, folks. Remember to like and subscribe.